You're watching Shadow Whisper, where late-night horror doesn't just entertain you, it follows you. Before we dive in, do me a favor real quick. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your city, your state, your country. And if something weird has ever happened to you, in the woods, on a lonely road, in a dead quiet town, tell us your story down there too. We love turning real stories into the next nightmare on this channel. Tonight, we're heading deep into Appalachia, into a town that doesn't show up right on the map. A little place where folks have an unspoken rule. After dark, don't look at the windows. If you ignore that rule, the town doesn't just watch you, it keeps you. So turn your lights down, plug your headphones in, and whatever happens, don't look at anything reflective while you're listening, because this story is about what stares back. The town was called Briar Hollow, not on the big signs off the interstate, just a cracked wooden board nailed to a leaning post on a narrow mountain road. Population? Nobody really knew. It was the kind of place where everybody knew each other's business, but no one said much to strangers. Ryan, 27, from Cincinnati, wasn't planning to stop there. He was on his way to visit his older brother, who lived a few hours deeper into the Appalachian Mountains for work. The GPS cut out somewhere after a wrong turn near an old coal road. Phone signal. Dead. Dashboard. GPS. Frozen. The road. Thinner. Darker. No streetlights. Just trees pressing in. After another 20 minutes of driving in silence, Ryan finally saw something. A gas station. Or what used to be one. The sign said, Briar Hollow General and Gas. Half the lights were out. The pumps looked older than his dad, but the open sign buzzed red in the front window. He pulled in. He didn't know it yet, but that's where it all went wrong. Inside the store, it smelled like old coffee and dust. A small bell above the door jingled as he walked in. Behind the counter stood an old man in a flannel shirt and faded cap, watching him with the kind of stare that said, I know you don't belong here. Evenin', Ryan said, trying to be polite. The old man nodded slowly. You're lost. Ryan forced a laugh. Is it that obvious? Out-of-state plates. Wrong road. GPS probably died about 4 turns ago. Yeah? Ryan blinked. Exactly. The old man sighed, like this whole thing was an inconvenience. You on your way somewhere, or just driving until something bad happens? Trying to get to my brother's place. He's renting a cabin in a town called... The old man raised his hand. Don't need to know all that. He walked over to a dusty rack, grabbed a folded paper map, the kind Ryan hadn't seen since middle school, and slapped it down on the counter. Then, almost like he was deciding something, the old man said quietly, Listen, son, you can sit tight in your car and wait for the GPS to wake up. Or you can try to cut through these roads and maybe end up in a ditch. Either way, you're probably going to be here till dark. Ryan frowned. Is that bad? The old man's expression changed just a tiny bit. Round here, we've got a rule. He paused, eyes flicking to the front windows. After dark, don't look at the windows. Ryan chuckled, thinking it was some weird local superstition. Like, at all? Inside or outside, the old man replied. You see anything move that shouldn't be moving? Ignore it. Curtains shift? Ignore it. Face in the glass? Ignore it. You hear me? Ryan stared at him. Is this like some prank you guys play on tourists? The old man didn't smile. Tourists don't come here. The old man ended up letting Ryan park behind the store and crash in the little guest room upstairs. Just for the night. You head out in the morning, he said. Sun's up, road clears, I'll point you in the right direction." The room was small but clean enough. Single bed, small dresser, a lamp, a chair, and one thing Ryan didn't like: a window. It was big, facing the road, with old lace curtains that stirred even though the air felt perfectly still. He joked about it when the old man showed him the room. "Hope the window doesn't eat me or something." The old man didn't even crack. "Just close the curtains. And after dark, don't look." Ryan brushed it off. He was a city guy, used to weird people, used to edgy jokes. He lay on the bed scrolling through his phone, even though there was no signal, just flipping through old photos and memes. The sun slipped behind the mountains, and the room turned blue, then gray, then dark. The town outside grew quiet. Too quiet. No cars, no music, no TV sounds through thin walls, just silence, and the occasional creak of old boards shifting in the building. Around 9:30 p.m., Ryan heard footsteps downstairs. The old man, walking back and forth, a door opening and closing. Then, nothing. He stared at the curtain. In the lamplight, it looked harmless. But the longer he watched it, the more he felt like there was something on the other side. Something standing there, waiting. It started with a light scratch, just a tiny sound, like a branch brushing the glass. Ryan froze. The sound came again, a little higher this time. Scratch, scratch. Pause. He told himself it was just a tree, maybe a low branch swaying in the breeze. Then he remembered. There had been no tree that close to the window. He saw nothing through the thin fabric, just the vague shape of the frame. Scratch, scratch. He grabbed his phone and checked the time. 9:47 p.m. "Nope," he muttered. "This is some horror movie setup. I'm not doing it." He tried to ignore it, put on some downloaded music, turned the volume up, scrolled through his phone again. The scratching got louder, longer, slow, like someone dragging fingernails down the glass. His heart pounded. He could have gone downstairs, but what was he gonna say? "Hey, your haunted window is bothering me?" He sat on the bed, staring at the curtain, feeling his palms sweat. Then the scratching stopped. For a moment, the silence was worse. Then something tapped on the glass. 3 sharp knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Ryan swallowed. His voice came out shaky. "Hello?" No answer. He told himself, "It's just some punk messing with you. Some local kid, that's all." The old man's voice echoed in his head. "After dark. Don't look at the windows." Ryan stood up slowly. His brain knew better. But curiosity? That's the real monster, right? He reached toward the curtain. He pulled the curtain back. Nothing. Just his reflection in the glass. Messy hair, tired eyes, faint glow from the lamp behind him. Dark road, shadowy shapes of buildings, the faint outline of trees. He almost laughed. "Man, I'm so paranoid." Then his reflection blinked. He didn't. His eyes went wide. He held perfectly still. But the version of him in the glass tilted its head. Just a little. Just enough. Ryan's stomach dropped. The thing in the reflection smiled. It was his mouth, his teeth, his face. But the smile kept stretching, too wide, too slow, like someone was pulling the edges of his lips with invisible hooks. He stumbled back. His body hit the bed. The reflection didn't move back with him. It stayed close to the glass. And then it raised a hand. It was his hand, but the fingers were too long, each one stretching against the inside of the window like it wanted to crawl through the glass. The room felt ice cold. His breath came in short gasps. The reflection mouthed something. He couldn't hear it, but he could read it. "Let me in," He grabbed the curtain and yanked it shut so hard he almost tore it off the rod. His heart was slamming in his chest. His mouth was dry. Downstairs, a door opened. Slow footsteps came up the creaking stairs. Ryan stared at the door as the footsteps approached. Soft, steady, like someone who knew exactly where they were going. The footsteps stopped right outside his room. He forced himself to speak. "Old man? That you?" No answer. Then, knock, knock. 2 gentle knocks on wood. He swallowed. "That's not funny, man." Silence. Then a voice. It sounded like the old man at first, but slightly off. "Open the door, son. Gotta check on ya." Ryan's skin crawled. Something in the tone was wrong, like someone trying to copy an accent, but missing the rhythm. "Nah, I'm good," Ryan said. "I'm just gonna sleep." The voice shifted, lost some of the old man's rasp, got a little younger. "Come on, dude. It's me, Mark. Open up." Ryan's heart skipped. Mark was his brother's name. He had never told the old man that. "Open the door," the voice repeated. "You looked outside. We gotta talk." His hands shook. He looked at the doorknob and realized it was turning on its own. The door creaked open a crack. Ryan lunged forward, slammed his shoulder into it, and locked it again, breathing hard. The voice on the other side laughed. But it wasn't really a laugh. It was the sound of someone who had heard humans laugh and was trying to copy it without getting the emotion right. Then the voice dropped to a whisper. "You looked at the window. Now the window's looking back." The footsteps slowly moved away. He didn't sleep that night. He just sat on the floor, back against the door, watching the curtain tremble even though the air was still. When the light finally started seeping through the curtains, it felt like a lifeline. He waited another 20 minutes just to be sure it was really morning before he cracked the door open. The hallway was empty, dust floating in the air, sunlight leaking through cracks. He walked downstairs. The old man was behind the counter like nothing happened, reading a newspaper that looked older than Ryan. "You look like hell," the old man said, without looking up. Ryan slammed his hands on the counter. "What the hell happened last night? Someone was knocking on my door. And that window?" The old man raised a hand. "You looked." Ryan froze. The old man folded his newspaper calmly. "I told you not to, but y'all never listen. City folk never do." "What was it?" Ryan snapped. "What did I see in that glass?" The old man stared at him for a long moment. "Some places out here, the veil's thin. Briar Hollow's one of 'em. Windows, they ain't just glass, son. At night, they're open doors. You look long enough, something on the other side looks back. Sometimes it likes what it sees." "That thing knew my brother's name," Ryan whispered. "I never told you his name." The old man nodded slowly. "It don't just copy your face. It digs, takes your voice, your memories, little pieces of you. That's how it can follow you. You gave it something to work with." Ryan felt his throat tighten. "Follow me?" The old man shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. Depends how interested it is in you. You look like a curious one, though." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small roll of black electrical tape. "What's that for?" Ryan asked. The old man slid it across the counter. "When you get where you're going, any room you sleep in, any car you ride in, any place you spend the night, tape a cross over the inside of the window, top to bottom, side to side. Makes it harder for it to see you right, harder for it to line up." "Line up?" The old man's eyes were tired. "Line up your reflection with what it's trying to wear." Ryan got out of Briar Hollow as fast as he could. The GPS came back to life a few miles down the road, like nothing had happened. Signal bars returned. Music started playing again. For a minute, he almost convinced himself it was just stress, just fear, just a mind game. Almost. That night, he reached his brother's cabin deep in another part of Appalachia. They joked about his creepy detour. His brother laughed it off. "This is why you don't leave home without downloading offline maps, dude." Ryan didn't tell him everything. Didn't mention the thing in the window. Didn't mention the voice outside the door. But when he went to bed, he remembered the tape. He pulled it out of his pocket, hands trembling just a little, and taped a cross on the inside of the cabin window. His brother knocked on the doorway, leaning in with a smirk. "You turning religious or something?" "Just humor me," Ryan said. His brother rolled his eyes and walked away. Ryan got into bed, stared at the taped window, and tried to sleep. At around 2:14 a.m., a sound woke him. Soft, subtle, like someone brushing a fingertip along glass. He opened his eyes. The window was almost completely black, reflecting the faint light from the hallway. In the middle of the cross-shaped tape, he saw his reflection. Except it wasn't lined up perfectly. The head tilt was slightly wrong, the eyes a little too wide, the smile a little too eager. It leaned forward, pressing its face against the glass from the other side. The tape held. Barely. The reflection mouthed words he couldn't fully hear, but he could read one part clearly. "See you later." He shut his eyes. He didn't look again. Somewhere in Appalachia, there are towns that don't make it to the tourist brochures. Places where people know better than to stare into dark glass after sunset. Because windows don't just show you the outside world. Sometimes they show you what wants in. So if you're listening to this in a dark room right now, with a window next to you or across from you, do one thing for me. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever seen something in a reflection that shouldn't have been there, a face behind you, a shape in the glass, something standing just a little too close, you've been watching Shadow Whisper. And remember, next time you park in some tiny forgotten town in Appalachia and an old local tells you not to look at the windows after dark, believe them. Because once something on the other side knows your face, it doesn't need the window anymore. Story 2. The Thing That Walked Behind the Guardrails. If you've ever driven a lonely road at night and seen something that made your stomach drop, a figure on the shoulder, weird lights in the trees, a hitchhiker that didn't feel right, tell us your story too. We're staying in Appalachia again. On a stretch of highway, drivers whisper about, but never officially report. Because who are you gonna call and say, "Hey, there's something walking behind the guardrails, and it's keeping up with my car." Buckle up, turn your brights off, and don't look too long at anything on the side of the road. Lena was used to driving late. She worked nights at a small hospital in a mountain town in West Virginia, and her commute took her along a 2-lane highway cutting straight through the Appalachian dark. No streetlights, just her headlights, the guardrails, and the endless silhouettes of trees. It was a Tuesday, 3:17 a.m. She was on her way home, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee, listening to some true crime podcast to stay awake. The host was describing a body found in the woods when Lena decided that was a little too on the nose for tonight and switched to music instead. The road was empty. No cars in front of her. No one behind. She'd driven this stretch 1,000 times. But that night, the highway felt wrong. like the darkness was heavier than usual, like the trees were leaning in just a little closer. It started as a shadow. Up ahead, just barely visible in the edge of her high beams, she saw something move on the right side of the road, behind the guardrail. A tall, thin shape, walking. She slowed down a little, squinting. "Great," she muttered. "Some idiot walking the highway at 3 a.m. That's safe." The shape moved in rhythm with her car. Step, step, step. As she got closer, she realized it wasn't on the shoulder. It was walking behind the guardrail, up on that narrow strip of dirt between the rail and the drop-off into the trees. That alone was weird. There was barely space to stand there, let alone walk. Her stomach gave a small lurch. The figure was tall, too tall, its head almost level with the top of the rail. Arms a little too long, each step a little too smooth, like its legs were just slightly the wrong length. Her brain started doing that thing where it tries to rationalize. Probably some hiker, maybe a drunk guy, homeless, lost. She eased her foot off the gas, not wanting to speed past too close. Her car drew even with it. Her high beams washed over the figure. And it didn't have a face. Just smooth, pale skin where features should have been. No eyes, no nose. Just the faint suggestion of where a mouth should have been, stretched a little too wide. She gasped and jerked the steering wheel, the car swerving for a second. By the time she got control again and looked back, the figure was gone. Just empty rail and trees rushing by. Her hands were shaking. She turned the music off, heart hammering. Okay, you're tired, she told herself. You've been on your feet for 12 hours. You're seeing stuff. She grabbed her phone from the cup holder and hit the voice call button on her best friend Tara. It rang twice before Tara answered, her voice groggy. "Dude, it's like 3:30 in the morning. You dying or what?" "I saw something on the road," Lena said, voice too sharp. "Yeah, it's called a speed limit sign." "I'm serious, T." Lena told her what she saw. The too tall figure, the faceless head, the way it walked behind the guardrail like the drop didn't matter. Tara was quiet for a moment. "Okay, that's creepy as hell," she finally said. "But you also sound exhausted." "Maybe it was a tree, or your headlights hit, like a reflector weird, optical illusion type stuff." "Trees don't walk," Lena snapped. "Some do, if you're sleep-deprived enough." Lena tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. She kept talking to Tara, using the conversation to ground herself. She was starting to calm down when Tara went quiet. "Hey," Lena said. "You there?" "Yeah," Tara said slowly. "What's that noise?" Lena frowned. "What noise?" "It sounds like footsteps, like someone walking on gravel." Lena felt her skin go cold. She hadn't noticed it over the sound of the engine and the tires, but now that Tara mentioned it, there was another rhythm, a steady crunching, almost in sync with her car, like something was walking beside her. She glanced to her right. The highway curved, guardrails hugging the edge of the dark drop. Something was moving just at the edge of her high beams. The same tall, thin silhouette, pacing her, step for step. Except it wasn't behind the guardrail anymore. It was moving along the outside of it. Feet planted on nothing. Its legs were too long, joints bending just a little wrong. Her throat tightened. "It's here," she whispered. "Don't say that," Tara replied immediately. "Don't freaking say that. It's walking next to my car, T. It's on the other side of the guardrail. It's not supposed to be able to walk there." Okay, Tara said, voice suddenly sharp and awake. "Lena, listen to me. Look straight ahead. Do not." Lena's eyes, of course, slid back to the right. The figure moved closer to the rail, one long hand reaching out to drag along it. Except its fingers didn't bend around the rail. They went through it. Sparks of pale light flickered where its hand should have clanged against metal, but there was no sound. Her car's speedometer read 58 pinpian, Dadi Hyonthi Taf. It kept pace like it was taking a casual walk in the park. The figure turned its head toward her. Even though it had no real face, she felt its attention like a physical weight. The surface where its features should be began to shift. Two dark dents appeared where eyes should be. A line stretched into a mouth. It was copying her, using her own features like a reference. The impression of a smile widened, too big, too fast, like someone dragging a cursor across a warped screen. Her breath hitched. "Lena!" Tara's voice snapped in her ear. "Talk to me." "What's it doing?" It's trying to make a face," Lena said, voice shaking. "Like it doesn't know how." As she watched, the not face flickered. For a split second, it looked almost human, and then it didn't. The eyes were too far apart, the mouth was too wide. The head tilted at an angle that would have snapped a normal neck. It pressed one hand against the invisible barrier of the rail, pushing through like it was forcing its way into her lane. "Lena! Don't look at it!" Tara shouted. Lena realized she'd drifted slightly toward the edge, her car inching closer to the guardrail. She jerked the steering wheel left. For a heart-stopping second, she felt like something grabbed the right side of the car, a cold, dragging pull, like hands on the metal. Then she broke free. The figure vanished from her peripheral vision. The crunching footsteps stopped. Her exit appeared like a miracle, a small green sign illuminated in her headlights. She took it too fast, tires squealing. The off-ramp curved sharply, leading into a small town with a closed diner, a dark gas station, and one lone police cruiser parked behind the station. She pulled into a lot and slammed the brakes, chest heaving. "Okay," Tara said through the phone, breathing hard like she'd just run too. "You good? You alive? Car still in one piece?" Lena looked around. The parking lot was empty. No tall figures, no footsteps. "Yeah," she whispered. "I think so." "Go inside somewhere with lights," Tara said. "Gas station, diner, I don't care if it's closed. Park under a light. Monsters hate fluorescent. Right?" The joke was weak, but Lena appreciated the effort. She parked under a flickering streetlight and finally let herself cry, hands gripping the steering wheel. After a few minutes, she wiped her face and took a deep breath. "I'm gonna head home," she said quietly. "Back roads. No more highway tonight." "Call me when you get there, or I'm driving out there myself," Tara said. Lena hung up, checked her mirrors one more time, and pulled out. A few days later, she couldn't shake it. She kept thinking about the thing's legs, the way it walked on nothing, the way it tried to wear a human face. She had a cheap dash cam mounted on her windshield. She'd installed it more for accidents and insurance than anything paranormal. But that meant whatever she saw might be on video. That idea scared her almost more than the actual encounter. She went back and forth for a day before she finally popped the SD card out and plugged it into her laptop. Fast-forwarded to 3 a.m. The highway footage rolled by, lines blurring under her, trees, guardrails. Her heart pounded as she saw the timestamp match what she remembered. There. Movement. She paused and rewound. Slowed it down. Behind the guardrail, a tall, thin shape. Even in the grainy night vision, it was wrong. Too smooth. Too tall. She stepped through frame by frame as her car drew closer. Her hands started to sweat. The dash cam caught it all. The figure walking behind the guardrail. The way it didn't react to the car. The two long arms. And then, in the frame where her car was right beside it, static. The figure flickered, and then vanished for exactly 1 second of footage. When the video cleared again, there was nothing there. Just empty rail. She frowned, rewound, slowed down more. On the frame right before the static, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. The thing's head was already turning toward her. Not toward the road. Not toward the camera. Toward her. Like it could see through the windshield. Like it knew she would watch this video later. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She kept the laptop open on her kitchen table, frozen on the last frame before the static burst. The figure's featureless head almost lined up with the driver's side window. The way its hand reached out toward the car. Her apartment was quiet. Too quiet. She lived on the second floor. Outside, a streetlight buzzed. At around 2:40 a.m. she got that feeling again, that heavy weight of being watched. She looked at the window. Closed blinds. No silhouette. Her eyes landed on her car keys. The thought popped into her head uninvited. What if it didn't stay on the road? She grabbed her keys, heart already racing, and stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the parking lot. Her car sat under the light. Perfectly normal. She clicked the unlock button remotely. The headlights flashed once. For a split second, in the reflection of the driver's side window, she saw it. A tall, thin shape in the passenger seat, just sitting there, head tilted toward the driver's side. The lights went off. The reflection vanished. She locked the car again with shaking hands and backed slowly into her apartment. The next morning, she traded the car in. Didn't care about the loss. Didn't care what the dealership thought. She just knew she didn't want to sit in that driver's seat ever again. A few weeks later, Lena told a co-worker about it in a half-joking, "You won't believe this" kind of way. Her co-worker went pale. "You drove Highway 72 at night?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, why?" "They've been talking about something out there for years. Truckers, late-shift workers, cops. They call it the Walker." "Like a ghost?" "Like something that doesn't belong on our side," the co-worker said. "They say it paces behind the guardrails. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But if it takes an interest in you—" She trailed off. "What?" Her co-worker swallowed. "You start seeing it other places. Next to your car, in your back seat, reflected in your windows. Like once it gets your scent, it keeps up, no matter how fast you're going." Lena didn't sleep much after that. She changed her route, changed her schedule, stopped driving at night when she could help it. But sometimes, when she's heading home and the sun's just barely set, she swears she feels that old familiar weight on the side of her vision. And she doesn't look. Not anymore. Highways running through Appalachia cut across more than just mountains. They cross old land, old stories, old rules. So next time you're driving late at night and you see something walking behind the guardrails or pacing the shoulder a little too close to your car, ask yourself, is that a person or just something that learned how to walk like one? If you've ever seen anything creepy on a night drive, a hitchhiker that vanished when you passed, glowing eyes in the trees, a shape in your rearview mirror that shouldn't have been there, you're not just venting. You might be warning somebody else. You've been listening to Shadow Whisper. And remember, the next time you look in your side mirror and see something keeping pace with you in the dark, you can take your foot off the gas. You can change lanes. You can look away. But some things, once they've matched your speed, don't fall behind. Story 3. The Hymn That Never Ends. You're tuned into Shadow Whisper, where we don't just tell scary stories. We dig them up from the places you'd rather not think about. Before we start our last story, hit the comments and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? And if your town has a creepy church, abandoned building, or that one place nobody goes after dark, drop your story down there too. Seriously, we read them, we save them, and sometimes your stories become our next videos. We're going back into Appalachia. This time, to a church that's supposed to be empty. No congregation, no choir, no pastor. But if you stand outside it at night, you can hear singing. And God isn't the one listening. Caleb grew up in a tiny Appalachian town where there was absolutely nothing to do if you were under 25, bored and slightly stupid. So, of course, the local fun was dares, old mine shafts, creepy bridges, and Miller's Church. Miller's Church stood on a hill outside of town, surrounded by leaning gravestones and wild grass. White paint peeled off its wooden siding. The bell tower leaned like it was tired of holding secrets. Official story? The congregation dwindled over the years. People moved away, the pastor died, and the church closed. Unofficial story? People said the last few weeks before it shut down, the hymns didn't sound right. The congregation would be singing. And somewhere in there, under the voices, under the organ, under the wooden creak of the building, something else sang with them. Something off-key, something that didn't know the words, but tried. It was a Friday night. Caleb, his cousin Drew, and their friend Maddie were sitting in a beat-up pickup truck in the parking lot of the Dollar General, doing what bored small-town 20-somethings do, absolutely nothing. They were scrolling TikTok, sharing dumb memes, when a video came up about haunted churches. Man, these city people think stained glass is scary, Drew snorted. They should come out to Miller's at night. That place is actually cursed. Maddie rolled her eyes. You mean that busted building with the possums in it? Drew grinned. All right then, let's make it interesting. He leaned forward between the front seats. Bet you won't go inside Miller's Church tonight. Just you and Caleb. No phones, no flashlights. Just sit in a pew for 5 minutes. Maddie scoffed. That's it? 5 minutes? Dude, I've sat through whole sermons as a kid. I can handle 5. Caleb shrugged. I'm down. It's just an old church. Drew's smile didn't reach his eyes. Cool, but you gotta do it before midnight. That's when the singing starts. Caleb laughed. Yeah, right. But when they pulled up to the church at 11:46 p.m., the laughter didn't feel as easy. Miller's Church was even worse up close. The moonlit hill was scattered with gravestones, some so old the names had faded completely. The church door was slightly ajar, swaying just an inch with every breath of wind, hinges groaning softly. Drew killed the truck engine and turned around in his seat. All right, rules are simple, he said. No flashlights, no phones, no Bluetooth speakers pretending it's haunted Maddie. I know you. She stuck her tongue out at him. You go in, Drew continued, sit in the front pew, and wait for 5 minutes. That's it. I'll honk when time's up. If you last the whole 5, I'm buying you both gas and Waffle House for a week. Deal, Caleb said. Easy money. As soon as he stepped out of the truck, the air felt heavier. The insects that had been buzzing near the fields went quiet. No wind in the trees. Just the faint creak of the church door and the crunch of their shoes on gravel. Maddie bumped his shoulder. Dude, if a raccoon jumps out, I'm punching you and running. Fair, he said. They pushed the door open. It groaned on the hinges, swinging inward to reveal a dark sanctuary that smelled like dust, old wood, and something faintly metallic. Moonlight slanted through dirty windows, turning the pews into long, crooked shadows. The altar at the front was bare, the pulpit leaning slightly to one side. The silence inside wasn't normal silence. It was thick, heavy, like sound didn't want to exist in there. Creepy, but not that bad, Caleb whispered. Their footsteps echoed as they walked down the center aisle and sat in the very front pew. The wood was cold, even through their jeans. "We should hold hands and summon demons," Maddie whispered jokingly. "Let's not," Caleb muttered. They sat there in the semi-darkness, listening to their own breathing. Second by second, the quiet dug under his skin. He glanced back once. The open doorway showed a sliver of Drew's truck, its headlights off, parked at the bottom of the hill. "There's your exit," Caleb told himself. 5 minutes, free waffles, easy. Then the air changed, like someone exhaled at the back of the church. It started as a hum, low, faint, almost like the sound of a distant refrigerator in an old house. Caleb frowned. "You hear that?" Maddie nodded slowly. "Yeah, probably the wind." There was no wind. The hum grew louder, like a voice warming up, getting comfortable. Then it turned into a note. Just one, held too long, somewhere between a human voice and something that had only ever heard humans sing. It was coming from the balcony above them, where the choir would have stood. Caleb's skin prickled. Maddie forced a laugh. "Okay, that's kinda cool. Creepy, but cool. Maybe some dude sleeping up there or something." The single note wavered. Then another voice joined it. Then another. Layer by layer, a choir built itself out of the darkness. Except the harmonies were wrong. Some voices were too high, cracking in places where no human throat should. Others were too low, like they were coming from under the floor. The sound wrapped around them, echoing through the wooden beams, filling the empty pews. Caleb's heart thudded. "That's not the radio," he whispered. "There's no power," Maddie said quietly. "Look." She pointed to the walls where dead light fixtures hung, wires exposed. The melody shifted into something almost familiar. An old hymn. One Caleb had heard growing up, sitting uncomfortably in stiff shirts, while old ladies sang about salvation. But the words weren't right. The voices tried to form syllables, but they slurred like someone who'd learned a song phonetically, in a language they didn't understand. Sounded close. Almost. But not quite. A line rose up from the choir. Where there should have been "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound," he heard, "Am I zinnen? Gra sound." The vowels dragged too long. The consonants snapped sharp, wrong. Maddie grabbed his arm. "Dude," she whispered, "I want to go." He swallowed. They hadn't heard the truck horn yet. "Give it another minute," he said, though his own voice shook. "Drew's probably—" A new voice cut through the others, closer, right behind them. "I can hear you." They spun around. The pews behind them were empty. But in the aisle, halfway down, the air looked thicker, like heat waves over asphalt, the shape of a person, or something pretending to be one. The heat haze figure flickered. Every time it pulsed, the choir shifted, like the whole sound system of the church glitched for a millisecond. It took a step forward. The wood beneath it didn't creak. It didn't cast a proper shadow, just a darker blur among the existing ones. Maddie's fingers dug into Caleb's arm hard enough to hurt. "Okay, screw waffles. We're done," she hissed. They stood up. The choir got louder. The figure in the aisle seemed to stretch, like someone pulling taffy. Its head tilted to the left, then the right, too far each way. When it opened its mouth, if that's what it was, the entire choir stuttered, like a track skipping. The hymn twisted into a noise that made Caleb's vision blur for half a second. His instincts screamed, "Don't let it finish the song." He grabbed Maddie's hand. "We're leaving," he said. They stepped out of the pew. The figure moved too, not walking, just sliding. Closer. They hurried down the aisle, trying not to look directly at the figure or the balcony. The singing swelled, pressing against their skulls like a storm. When they reached the door, Caleb grabbed the handle and yanked. It didn't move. He pulled harder. The door shuddered but didn't open, like something heavy leaned against it from the outside. "Drew!" Maddie shouted. "Quit messing around!" No answer. "Drew, I swear to God if you're holding this door—" Something laughed behind them. Not human. Not really. More like someone trying to copy a laugh they'd heard once, long ago. Caleb risked a glance back. The shape in the aisle was closer. Too close. In the moonlight, he thought he saw hints of a face. Eyes too far apart, mouth too wide and stitched full of wrong teeth. The hymn changed. The voices stopped pretending to sing words. Instead, they started repeating something in a language he didn't recognize. Sharp consonants, long, drawn-out vowels that made his stomach twist. And underneath all of it, one line rose above the rest, clear and awful. "Sty, sty, sty." Maddie clawed at the door, swearing under her breath. "Move, damn it!" It wouldn't. Caleb did the only thing he could think of. He stepped back, lowered his shoulder, and slammed into the door. It burst open so fast he nearly fell down the church steps. Cold night air hit them like a wave. The instant they were outside, the singing cut off. Not faded, not echoed, just off, like someone had yanked a plug. They stumbled down the steps, hearts racing, and ran toward the truck. Drew sat behind the wheel, staring up at the church, eyes wide. When they yanked the truck door open and jumped in, breathless, he turned to them slowly. "You heard it too," he said. "Dude, we're done with your dares forever," Maddie snapped. "You heard it," he repeated, voice shaky. That music." Caleb swallowed. "Why didn't you honk?" Drew stared at him. "I did. Twice, around midnight. Door didn't open." "Yeah," Maddie said. "We noticed." Drew shook his head slowly. "That's the thing," he whispered. "At midnight, I honked. Then I looked at the church door and saw you two coming out." Caleb frowned. "What?" "You walked out. Both of you. No rush, no freaked-out faces, just calm. You walked down the steps, turned toward the graveyard, and headed around the side of the church." "That wasn't us," Maddie said immediately. "You waved at me," Drew whispered, smiled, like you were fine. The night suddenly felt a lot colder. "Drew," Caleb said slowly, "we were inside. We didn't get out till just now. The singing kept us in." Drew's hands shook on the steering wheel. Then, what the hell did I see? Maddie grabbed her phone the second they got home. "No way I'm going to bed without proof," she muttered. They'd obeyed the no-phone rule mostly. But Maddie had set her lock screen to record audio whenever she double-tapped the side button. She'd done it out of habit walking into the church. "Just in case we catch a creak or something," she joked. Now, they huddled on Caleb's couch, lights on, listening to the recording. At first, it was just their footsteps and nervous whispers. Then the hum started. Low, distant, singing voices rose, layered and wrong. The hymn stumbled over itself, the language twisting. As the minutes passed, the sound mutated into something that made Caleb want to rip his headphones off. Too many voices. Too close. Then they heard it. Maddie's voice, panicked, saying, "I want to go." His own voice, "Give it another minute." Then the new voice from behind them, "I can hear you." On the recording, something crackled. The door opening sounded too slow, stretched. When they reached the part where they burst outside, there should have been the sound of wind, their footsteps on the steps, Drew yelling. Instead, the singing continued. Louder. Inside the recording, they never left the church. The hymn swelled, filling the audio until it was just wall-to-wall noise, distorted, glitching, like the church itself was pressing its walls against their eardrums. Then, just before the recording cut off, a single voice whispered, so close it might as well have been speaking into the mic, "We are still here." The audio stopped. Dead silence. No sound of the truck. No engine. Nothing. Caleb's living room felt smaller, like the walls had inched closer. They tried to move on. They really did. But things changed after that. The first time Caleb noticed it was at work. He stocked shelves at a small hardware store in town. The store had a radio that played soft country music all day. One afternoon, the station cut out for a second, like the signal dropped. Then, for 3 long, unbearable seconds, he heard it. The same off-key hymn. The same 2 long vowels. The same wrong language chanting underneath. Then the station came back like nothing happened. Maddie started hearing humming when she was alone. In the shower, in her car, walking down the hall at home. She'd stop. It would stop. Then start again, just under her breathing. Drew swore he could see figures in his rearview mirror whenever he drove past the church hill now, even in the daytime. Not full bodies. Just distorted choir robes, flickering like bad reception. A month later, Caleb made a decision he knew was stupid. He went back. He told himself it was to prove it was all in his head, to show that it was just acoustics, fear, suggestion. But really, he just couldn't stop thinking about that line on the recording. "We are still here." He parked at the bottom of the hill, killed the engine, and sat in the dark truck. No moon that night. The church was just a black shape against a slightly less black sky. His pulse hammered. He didn't go inside this time. He just stood at the bottom of the steps, staring up. "All right," he said quietly, feeling stupid. "If you're real, do something." Silence. Then, a note. Soft. Low. From inside the church. He froze. The hymn rose again, not as loud as before, but clearer. This time, he recognized the tune immediately. It wasn't an old hymn. It was a song he'd listened to earlier that day in his truck. A rock song. The church was trying to sing his music now. The melody warped, breaking, restarting. The words weren't words, just a chorus of voices trying to mimic something foreign to them. His throat tightened. "Okay," he whispered. "I hear you. I'm leaving." He turned around. At the bottom of the hill, where his truck should have been parked, he saw himself, standing next to the truck, looking up at the church. The other Caleb turned slowly, like he could feel being watched. His face was wrong. Eyes a little too dark, smile a little too sharp. The thing raised a hand in a slow, stiff wave. He didn't wave back. He just closed his eyes and ran back up the hill. He doesn't go near Miller's church anymore. Not that it matters. Sometimes, late at night, when he's lying in bed, he can hear faint singing under his fan. When he pauses his music, there's always a half-second where he thinks he hears a choir catching up. And once, just once, his Spotify glitched and started playing a track that wasn't on any of his playlists. No album art, no title, just a length, 4:44. He pressed play. It was the hymn, their hymn, and in the very last second, someone whispered his name. Out in Appalachia, there are more churches than gas stations. Some of them are alive with people, music, and praise, and some of them should have stayed silent. If your town has a place like that, an abandoned church, a closed-down hall, a building everyone swears they hear voices from at night, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what your local legend is. Have you ever heard music when there shouldn't have been any? A choir with no choir, a hymn with no congregation. We want to hear your story. You've been listening to Shadow Whisper. And remember, not every song stuck in your head came from the radio. Sometimes, something out there learns your favorite tune, so it can sing along from the dark.